Second Chronicles 35. Passover is celebrated. Joshua commanded the Passover be celebrated in Jerusalem to honor the Lord. So, on the 14th day of the first month, the lambs were killed for the Passover celebration. That day, Joshua made sure the priests knew what duties they were to do in the temple. He called together the Levites who served the Lord and who taught the people his laws. And he said, "No longer will you have to carry the sacred chest from place to place. It will stay in the temple built by King Solomon, son of David, where you will serve the Lord and his people Israel. Get ready to do the work that David and Solomon assigned to you, according you according to your clans. Divided yourselves into groups, then arrange yourselves throughout the temples so that each family of worshippers will be able to get help from one of you. When the people bring you their Passover lamb, you must kill it and prepare it to be sacrificed to the Lord. Make sure the people celebrate according to the instructions that the Lord gave Moses. And don't do anything to make yourselves unclean and unacceptable." Joshua donated 30,000 sheep and goats and 3,000 bulls from his own flocks and herd for the people to offer as sacrifices. Joshua's officers also voluntarily gave some of their animals to the people, the priests, and the Levites as sacrifices. Hilkiah, Zechariah, and Jehiel, who were the officers in charge of the temple, gave the priests 2,600 sheep and lambs and 300 bulls to the sacrifices during the Passover celebration. Cananiah, his two brothers, Shemaiah and Nathaniel, as well as Hashabiah, Jeiel, and Jozabad, and leaders of the Levites, and they gave the other Levites 5,000 sheep and goats, and 500 bulls to the offers as sacrifices. When everything was ready to celebrate the Passover, the priests and the Levites stood where Joshua had told them. Then the Levites skinned the Passover lambs, and they handed some of the blood to the priest, who splattered it on the altar. The Levites set aside the part of the animal that the worshippers raised for their sacrifice to please the Lord, just as the law of Moses required. They also did the same thing with the bulls. They sacrificed the Passover animal on the altar and boiled the meat for the other offerings in pots, kettles, and pans. Then they quickly handed the meat to the people so they could eat it. All day long, the priests were busy offering sacrifices and burning the animals' fat on the altar. And when everyone has finished it, the Levites prepared the Passover animals for themselves and all the priests. During the celebration, some of the Levites prepared Passover animals for the musicians and the guard, so that the revived musicians would not have to leave their places, which had been assigned to them according to the instruction of David, Asaph, Heman, and Jeduthun the king's prophet. Even the guards at the temple gates did not have to leave their post. So on that day, Passover was celebrated to honor the Lord, and sacrifices were offered on the altar to him, just as Joshua had commanded. The worshippers then celebrated the festival of thin bread for the next 7 days. People from Jerusalem and from towns all over Judah and Israel were there. Passover had not been observed like this since the days of Samuel the prophet. In fact, this was the greatest Passover celebration in Israel's history. All these things happened in the 18th years of Josiah's rule in Judah. Josiah dies in battle. Some time later, King Necho of Egypt led his army to the city of Carchemish on the Euphrates River. The Josiah led his troops north to meet the Egyptians' battle. Necho sent the following message to Josiah: I'm not attacking you, king of Judah. We are not even at war, but God has told me to quickly attack my enemy. God is on my side, so if you try to stop me, he will punish you. But Joshua ignored Necho's warning, even though it came from God. Instead, he disguised himself and marched into the battle against Necho in the valley near Megiddo. During the battle, an Egyptian soldier shot Joshua with an arrow. Joshua told his servant, "Get me out of here. I've been hit." They carried Joshua out of his chariot, then put him in the other chariot he had there, and took him back to Jerusalem, where he soon died. He was buried beside his ancestors, and everyone in Judah and Jerusalem mourned his death. Jeremiah the prophet wrote a funeral song in honor of Joshua, and since then anyone in Judah who mourns the death of Joshua sings that song. It is included in the collection of funeral songs. Everything else Joshua did while he was king, including how he faithfully obeyed the Lord, is written in the history of the kings of Israel and Judah. King Jehoahaz of Judah. After the death of Joshua, the people of Judah. Chapter 36. King Joshua of Judah. After the death of Joshua, the people of Judah crowned his son Jehoahaz their new king. He was 23 years old at the time, and he ruled only 3 months from Jerusalem. King Necho of Egypt captured Jehoahaz and forced Judah to pay 3.4 tons of silver and 34 kilograms of silver as taxes. Then Necho appointed Jehoahaz's brother Eliakim, king of Judah, and changed his name to Jehoiakim. He led Jehoahaz away to Egypt as his prisoner. king Jehoiakim of Judah. Jehoiakim was 25 years old when he was appointed king, and he ruled 11 years from Jerusalem. Jehoiakim disobeyed the Lord his God by doing evil. During Jehoiakim's rule, King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylonia invaded Judah. He arrested Jehoiakim and put him in chains, and he sent him to the capital city of Babylon. Nebuchadnezzar also carried off many of the valuable things in the Lord's temple, and he put them in his palace in Babylon. Everything else Jehoiakim did while he was king, including all the disgusting and evil things, is written in the history of the kings of Israel and Judah. His son Jehoiachin then became king. King Jehoiachin of Judah. Jehoiachin was 18 years old when he became king of Judah, and he ruled only 3 months and 10 days from Jerusalem. Jehoiachin also disobeyed the Lord by doing evil. In the spring of the year King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon had Jehoiachin arrested and taken to Babylon, along with more of the valuable items in the temple. Then Nebuchadnezzar appointed Zedekiah king of Judah. King Zedekiah of Judah. Zedekiah was 21 years old when he was appointed king of Judah, and he ruled from Jerusalem for 11 years. He disobeyed the Lord his God and refused to change his ways. Even after a warning from Jeremiah, the Lord's prophet, King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon had forced Zedekiah to promise in God's name that he would be loyal. Zedekiah was stubborn and refused to turn back to the Lord God of Israel, so he rebelled against Nebuchadnezzar. The people of Judah and even the priests who were their leaders became more unfaithful. They followed the disgusting example of the nation around them and made the Lord's holy temple unfit for worship. But the Lord God felt sorry for his people, and instead of destroying the temple, he sent prophets who warned the people over and over about their sins. But the people only laughed and insulted these prophets. They ignored what the Lord God was trying to tell them until he finally became so angry that nothing could stop him from punishing Judah and Jerusalem. Jerusalem is destroyed. The Lord sent King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylonia to attack Jerusalem. Nebuchadnezzar killed the young men who were in the temple, and he showed no mercy to anyone, whether man or woman, young or old. God let him kill everyone in the city. Nebuchadnezzar carried off everything that he was left in the temple. He robbed the treasury and the personal storerooms of king and his officers. He took everything back to Babylon. Nebuchadnezzar's troops burned down the temple and destroyed every important building in the city. Then they broke down in the city wall the supervisor were taken to Babylonia as prisoners, where they were slaves of the king and his sons until Persia. Persia became a powerful nation. Judah was an empty desert, and it stayed that way for 7 years, 70 years. To make up for all the years it was not allowed it to rest. These things happened just as Jeremiah the Lord prophet had said. Cyrus let the Jews return home. In the first year that Cyrus was king of Persia, the Lord had Cyrus sent a message to all parts of his kingdom. This happened just as Jeremiah the Lord prophet had promised. The message said, I am King Cyrus of Persia. The Lord God of heaven has made me the ruler of every nation on earth. He has also chosen me to build the temple for him in Jerusalem, which is in Judah. The Lord God will watch over any of his people who wants to go back to Judah.